500 years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, "I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die."
The Phantom,
The ghost who walks,
the Phantom,
enemies beware, the Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom. He finds you.
G'day everybody, and for those who have come in late, you're listening to Expand the Phantom podcast. This is episode 130. And it's titled, What Would You ... My name is Jermaine, and tonight I'm joined by Dan. How are you, buddy?
I'm excellent, Jermaine. It's school holidays are a distant memory from 4 days ago. We're back in the
bit of a rude shock back to the system.
Absolutely. How was your 2 weeks in Bali?
It was long for some good reasons, but I had 2 children under the age of 5. Had one person ask me, how was it? And I answered, they came back with me. So that's a good start.
There were times where it was dubious.
Yes. But when we stayed at a couple of hotels. The last hotel had some children that were worse than mine. So it made me feel a lot better that I didn't have the worst children in the world.
Oh, good.
Okay. Tonight we're going to have some fun. We were going to do a comics and news podcast, but we thought, no, we're going to have some fun instead.
Well, I think that with Steve still unavailable, we want to bring him back in for a comics and news, especially to hear about his antics in Ireland and visiting.
Yeah, true.
So he's just got back in the country and still suffering jet lag, the poor bugger, and he struggles to stay awake at the best of times. So we thought we'd do this one instead.
Yeah, and we're going to have some fun tonight. So it's a different, we haven't done a podcast like this before, so we're going to try and explain it, and we're going to keep this very, very short, or as short as possible, and we're going to do it by using a timer. So if you hear noise around, that's what it is, okay? I've got a stopwatch next to me. I'm turning up the volume, and basically when that rings, the person who's talking has to stop that point, and then we move on to the next subject. Are you going to be able to do that, Dan?
I'll probably want to keep a timer on my end
so
I can keep an eye on it, but otherwise it'll get away from me. But we have said we want to make this like an hour-long podcast. I reckon we've said that we don't want today to go longer than 60 minutes in total. So there's a lot we could get through, or a little bit that we could get through. It will just depend on how much we get sidetracked along the way.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have some fun. We've got 5 questions, and we're going to do a Sophie's choice or whatever. So basically, imagine that you could only engage with one of these options for the rest of your life. For example, one of the questions we're going to ask is, if you only had to choose one of them, would it be a colour Phantom comic or a black and white Phantom comic?
And we want to make it a bit serious by saying that if whatever one you choose, you forego the other one for the rest of your life.
Yes. So now, do you want to quickly tell us where the whole Sophie's choice comes from?
Yeah, okay. So Sophie's choice is a bit of a colloquialism. It's come from a book / movie that came out in the late 70s, early 80s called Sophie's Choice, which was about a woman called Sophie, oddly enough, a Jewish lady who got caught up in Nazi Germany, had 2 children, and when she and her family were hauled into the concentration camp, the Nazi guard or soldier gave her the choice of saving one of her children and being able to choose which one, or they both got killed. And so she was compelled to make a choice. Do I save one child and let the other one die, or do I let both children die? And so as parents ourselves, we know that would be a horrendous position to be put in. And what we're doing tonight is far more trivial than that, obviously. But the concept is that there's, not necessarily a right answer. There's negatives to whatever you choose. Like if I was to choose colour and I never saw black and white again, there's no right
Yes.
answer. That's the point. That's the point.
Yes. All right. So we've got 5 questions, right? We'll go up. We've got colour versus black and white. Fruit
Right,
versus
no. Don't give
you
away
don't
all
want
the
to go
questions
that
now.
way?
No, we just
Okay.
go as we go.
All right. And so we've got 10 minutes. Okay. So let me bring up
10 minutes for each question.
the timer. All right. 10 minutes for each question.
Okay.
And you got to let the other person have a bit of a say as well. Okay.
Well, we'll see.
So, first of all, so Dan, what would you do? Colour or black and white if you only had one choice for the rest of your life?
It's a difficult one. On one hand, but easy on the other. It would be black and white is the answer, because I think that's what I've grown up with my fandom, with Frew in Australia and the newspaper strips. It's other than the Sundays in some papers, it's all been black and white for my my formative years as a fandom fan, and so and I still do love the classic black and white. So I'm slowly coming on board with colour with some of the stuff that Frew's been doing in the past couple of years. I do enjoy it, and there's a place for it, but no, I think I would have to settle on black and white.
Yeah, no, I think I'm the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I like colour, but the problem that I have with colour, like for instance, the question is you only have one choice for the rest of your life, is that a lot of the colour for the early stuff is crap. You know, the Egmonts, when they first switched to colour, it was crap. A lot of the early stuff with, you know, in the Sundays and all that, it was really poorly coloured. That, in my opinion, it looks better in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the choice is you only have one or the other. And like you said, we grew up on black and white. Majority of Australians see the Phantom as a black and white comic strip. So I think that one's a fairly easy answer for, I reckon 90% of Australians will go with black and white over colour. And for me, the big drawback is that I prefer to see the Sundays and the dailies in black and white because they look better than, up until recently, probably from about the 90s. Before then, all the colouring was very, very poorly done.
Yeah, there are some of the more modern stories that look fantastic in colour, and I don't know. Well, what are the terms of this? Does this mean that we can never see those stories again, or we have to wait until someone takes the colour out of them and publishes them?
Yeah, that's the way I see it. Is that if you were to read those stories, it would have to be in black and white.
Yeah. Well, there's obviously a lot more stories published in black and white. Than have been so we're giving ourselves a lot more to read too.
Yes, exactly. Or less work for the publishers to do.
Yep.
But no, I think that one's a fairly easy one to do.
All right.
So that one was pretty easy. That only took 3 minutes. Anything further you want to say on that one?
I'd just be interested to hear what other people have to say. Like we're 2 Australians, and as you said, I think we probably would represent the majority of Australians. But, you know, not necessarily. We know that fans on continents who have grown up with coloured fandoms will probably go the other way. So I'd be really interested to hear from, particularly, I guess, any Scandinavian or Indian listeners who have grown up with colour. What are your thoughts? So if you're watching
Indians, I think Scandinavians would be split. They're probably 50-50 or maybe 60-40 in the colour, but I think the Indian fans would be 100% colour because that's what they grew up on with the Indra.
So anyway, if you're listening to this because you followed a Facebook link, go and put a comment under the Facebook link. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment on the below the video. Tell us what you do.
You ready for your next one, mate?
Yes, I've forgotten the list.
If you could only engage with one of these options for the rest of your life, and the options are Frew or Egmont, what would they be?
Now, we didn't clarify this before recording. Are we talking about the magazine or the stories produced by? Like, if I say I don't, if I say Frew, does that mean I'm saying goodbye to any story ever produced by Egmont?
So Frew. Yes.
Yep. Okay, but through.
So if you were to go through, it would have to be either newspaper stories or the stories that they create, or if you were to go Egmont, it would have to be the newspaper stories. Let's just say that's with everyone, or the Egmont stuff, and then you've got their magazine. So it's not only. And let's just pretend, for the argument's sake, that you can read, that we can both read and understand Swedish as well as English.
I don't.
So it's not that as.
See, I hadn't factored that in. I can't read them, and so that's
just easy. That's an easy cop out. All right, I'll go first, and then you can have a bit of a moment to think about it.
Okay.
If I was asked this question 4 to 5 years ago, I would say Egmont, because in my opinion, Fru was a very, and this was 4 or 5 years ago, Fru was a very struggling comic 4 to 5 years ago, and Fru didn't publish their own stories. The covers were bad. The publication was not as good as what we have now. However, right now, I would have to say Fru, because Fru are creating their own stories. The covers are good, and the content is as good. I think the stories are probably not quite at the level of Egmont, but that's because, Egmont's been at it longer, and, they've got a higher staple of, creators and stuff like that. But if I had to choose between the two, and if I could read Swedish and stuff like that, at this stage, it would have to be Fru, purely based on the fact that, Fru are creating stories, and that they're creating their own stories, and that they've got other content as well, which, so yeah, it would have to be Fru if I had to choose between the two.
Okay. Obviously, my inclination is Fru as well. And I'll say obviously for people who are not listening to this podcast as their first Expand podcast, but people who have been tuning in for a lot of the last 80 or 90 or whatever I've been on board, I think I'm pretty clearly going to come down that way. I was probably going to take the easy cop out if I can't read the Egmonts, but I think under these circumstances, if you're saying, okay, I'm choosing Fru and therefore Egmont closes or ceases to exist, or I just have no access to any of those stories or whatever, you'd have to accept that Fru would have a reduced publishing schedule, probably by at least half. By the time you take out any story that's ever been produced by Egmont or what was on before that got taken over?
Semic.
Yes.
Semic.
Yeah. So if you're taking out any of those stories, you're going to, as I say, slash dramatically the Fru production schedule. So taking that into account, I'd still have to stay Fru though, because as a general rule, I like their stories better. I like the dailies and the newspapers and what Fru have produced better than I like the Egmont stories. So yeah, that's where I'd go.
So you're saying that the Fru stories. So you're saying the Fru stories you're actually enjoying more than the Egmont stories in the last year or two?
With exceptions, of course.
As from a general point of view.
Yeah, from a general point of view. Yeah, on the whole, yes. And that's a lot to do with the fact that Egmont stories do tend to draw on supernatural themes and that sort of thing far more often than not. Far more often than Fru would. And so, yeah, and I'm on the record as saying I don't particularly like the supernatural stories. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a good point about about the fact that, because, the supernatural stories are not my favourite either. I tend to get a little bit glassy-eyed and, read them a little bit quicker than what I normally would. But I would say that the Egmont story, well, in my opinion, Egmont stories, from a general point of view, and not just because there's more of them, but I would say that they're still of a higher quality, and the creators, from Egmont point of view, there's more of them, and then there's still, they've been at it longer as well. So I think, but in saying that, I'll probably still go Fru, although with Egmont, you'd probably get colour. You would. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking myself out of it, but yeah, no. I think I might stick with.
What if we factor in the non standard issues, if you like, the trade paperbacks and the collected hardcovers and that sort of thing, which both companies do, or Frew have only just started recently, but Egmont's been doing that for a while. We factor those in. How does that make you address the question?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. This is the hardest one at the moment, because this is a harder question than the colour versus black and white.
Yes, it is.
Egmont's got the runs on the board. They do, and they've been doing it better for longer. So that, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I am talking myself out of it and swapping alliances where Egmont have been doing it longer. Egmont have got a better staple of creators. I would say the cover artists are probably about the same. As much as I'm a Henrik Solstrom fan, I do like the fact that Frew has a wider variety of cover artists, where Egmont's got maybe 3 or 4 cover artists, and so the cover artists can get a little bit same. Where Frew, you've got you
so many different
Jason
styles.
Paulus, Jeremy McPherson, and what's another one?
Shane Foley.
Shane Foley, or even Jamie Johnson. There's dark gritty. There's there's a Sparta style. There's a sketchy style. So there are, and that does.
And you're just talking about the regular stable of artists. They're not the fact that they're so willing to and regularly getting guest artists, whether it's Jeff Weigel or Sal Valuto or Phil Mang or just so many of the greats.
So if we were to do a chalkboard, I would say that Egmont's got the better history. I would say, and then they've probably got the more creators, but Frew's got probably better cover art or a wider cover artists. And I don't know, I still think some of Frew's stories, they're better than the Keith Chatto ones, but I don't know. There's been some really good ones, but there's been some pretty average ones as well.
There's only been, would there be less than 10 Australian?
No, I think there would be more than
stories.
10. There would be.
Wouldn't be 20.
Well, there's Kid Phantom, Gaslight. So Kid Phantom's 8? Gaslight will do that as 1. You've got.
I guess there's the
3
Shane Foley
in the trade paperback, the 2.
Scorpius.
Yeah,
Scorpius,
then you've got
size.
the 3 in the 80th, 2 in the 80th issue, 3 in the trade paperback. So yeah, you're probably looking at maybe 20.
And we're recording this immediately, like 2 days after the Matt Kime issue 1850 come out as well. So that's probably the most recent one.
Yeah,
but there's certainly we're talking less than 20 versus hundreds from Egmont.
You're probably looking. I reckon with Egmont, Egmont Cement, you're probably looking at about 1,000 at a guess. So sheer numbers, you would have to do it that way.
So have you flipped? Are you now going Egmont?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to go Egmont.
Well, there's only 45 seconds left in this conversation, so you're going to have to settle. Is that where you're going?
Yeah. I'm going to go Egmont. If it had to be one, and that I could read the languages and stuff like that.
Yep. No, well, I am going to settle on Frew because the other thing we haven't said is that means we're going to get a lot more reprints of the dailies and the Sunday stories, and I love them. And there's hundreds of those to go around, so I'm okay with that.
Yep. All right. Can you hear that? Time
up. So anyway, Glenn Dudley, if you're listening, you'll hear how Germ got turned himself around.
All right. So the next question is, if you could only engage with one of these options for the rest of your life between dailies and Sundays, what would they be? And go.
Between dailies and Sundays.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because they're so similar in a sense. So you continue to only read, like you can read the 6 daily strips per week, but you can only read the Sunday new each week.
Once
So
a
that's
week.
what we're talking in terms of the new publications.
No. And the others, you don't read the others. They don't exist.
In terms of
or anything
history,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I probably needed to have a closer look through Fan and Wiki at the list of daily stories versus the list of Sunday stories, because whichever one you choose, you're saying goodbye to a bunch of really good stories. Like, thankfully, Lee Falk did run some stories in both, and so
you'd still get the wedding.
Yes, that was the one that came to mind. You know, you want to be able to
children.
Yes. I am leaning right now towards the dailies.
All right, I've thought about this one.
Okay.
You want me to go?
Okay, you go. I'll, as I said, I'm leaning dailies at this stage. Tell me what you're thinking.
Okay. I've looked at the Sundays and the dailies with the stories. Now, this is just my opinion.
Yep.
The dailies, you get more epic stories. So more adventures like, you have your, going back from the original, you have the Singh Brotherhood, you have the Golden Circle, you have the Phantom Goes to War.
Adventure.
You have those, those epic stories. And then even going to Siberia, you have the Mysterious Ambassador, you have the Reef, you have, those epic type of stories, the Hydra.
The Susie and the Governor, that's a daily, isn't it?
Yep, that's a daily. So, you get those epic type of adventures as a daily, where the Sundays are more fluffier type of stories. And so they're more, so I prefer the darker, grittier, more edgy adventure stories. So for me, I would go the dailies as well, because they're the type of stories that I prefer. Where I think if you prefer the more fluffier stories, the more family-focused type of stories, I think you would. And you've got the larger panels, you've got you've got colour. I think if you kind of like that type of stuff, you would probably lean towards the Sundays. Now, in saying that, if we did go the Sundays, there would be some stories that we would not get, including the founding of the Jungle Patrol and the League and the Vault. The missing Vault story.
The Vault of Missing Men.
Yeah, and they're 2 of my favourites.
And they're both Sundays, are they?
Yeah, they're Sundays. So that's a hard one, because you would miss out on 2 of those stories, and I love those stories. But
it's a Sophie's choice, mate. It's not supposed to be an easy choice.
yeah, but it would have to go the dailies for me for those reasons.
Okay, I'm belatedly looking it up on Pen and Wiki now, and not giving myself anywhere near enough time. But if I scroll through the daily stories, there's so many good stories there, and I'm still just in the McCoy era. Bulletstown. Yeah,
that's another one.
The Witchman.
The Masked Ball, yeah.
Trial of Patrolman Zorko.
Like those classic edgy type of stories are all dailies.
Yeah.
And they're the yarn type of ones that, that tend to go on for a while. And then you have twists and, kind of get a little bit more deeper, because instead of trying to do it just in the weekend. So that's where I'll go.
Now I'm looking at the Sundays, though. Fire Goddess, Beachcomber, Saboteurs, Return of the Sky Band, The Ismani Cannibals, Golden Princess. There's some classic stories here. The 12 Tasks, Marshall Sisters. You lose the Marshall Sisters. The Rope People. The Gibbs Brothers. Oh, gee, this is becoming a harder story. You're right, though, in terms of as he gets later on, there is the Queen Samaris the 12th. Queen Samaris the 12th is a Sunday story. It's an absolute classic.
And then you wouldn't, if you were to lose that, you wouldn't get the filming version either.
No.
Because it wouldn't have existed.
Yeah.
And I know that would displease a lot of fans.
Yes.
A lot of fans would go to Sundays just so that way the Queen Samaras would exist.
The terrorists, the Jungle Olympics, and that's where you are right there. Some of the fluffier stories, if you like, the Blue Giants in the Sunday selection as well. But then there's also the last 25 odd years after Lee Falk died, where Tony DePaul's essentially been the main man. And I think you're right. I think he very much does take the approach of the Sundays being less epic, although the Nomad is here as a Sunday. Without that, the reckoning of the Nomad is.
But
we got
all that type of stuff in the dailies anyway. So
yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to have to land on the dailies as well. No, hang on, wait up. I've got an important rider. If you were to own any original art from a Sunday/daily and you choose the wrong one, does that original art just there?
Oh, that's a good point. Yes.
It does, doesn't it? It has to.
Because I would think that the Sunday original art is better because, and I've got a brilliant Graham Nolan piece that's got a phantom in every single panel. And Graham Nolan's one of my favourite artists, so yeah, I would lose that.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't have never done the Phantom.
No.
So he would have never done the newspaper stories of the Phantom. He would have done his other stuff.
Yeah.
Not for you though, because you chose Free rather than Egmont, and
that's
he did
right.
some Egmont stuff.
That's right. So I'm just basically selectively cutting Graham Nolan out of my life. Oh, gee, you know what? On the grounds that I don't own any daily art, and I'm lucky enough to have 3 pieces of original Sunday art, I'm going to have to go back to Sundays.
Fair enough.
And I know I'm losing a lot of good daily stories there, but there's some really good Sunday stories too. So, yeah.
So is your decision purely based on the fact that you don't want to lose your original art that you own?
Oh, it's heavily weighted. It is heavily weighted that way. The frame would just look so blank on the wall. Yeah, I'm gonna have to land on the Sundays.
I would say another reason that's probably good with the Sundays is that you get more of the Phantom history regarding the Phantom's wives in the Sundays than in the dailies as well.
Oh, do you?
So from a historical point of view, there's you would lose a lot of that history.
Well, certainly the Wig is a Sunday, and that's that's one of the first stories really where Lee Falk explored that. Let's tell the stories of previous Phantoms. The first Phantom, that's a Sunday story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. So you'd lose that law.
Yeah. No, I think I'm happy. I'm going to stick with the Sundays.
All right.
Okay.
We did that with 1.5 minutes to spare. Okay, we are going to get inside this hour. People are going to be shocked when they
If there's time at the end, maybe we'll throw in a sudden surprise 6th topic.
Yeah. Okay. Now, this one, I think with this type of question is going to be easy, but I think if we rephrase the question a little bit, it will be a little bit more interesting.
Okay.
Okay. So if you only had one of these options for the rest of your life, between Ray Moore or Don Newton, who would it be?
What was the extra rider you were going to put on it to make it a bit more interesting?
There's a timer. Well, I guess when we originally was like, which artist do you prefer, or which artist, I guess, do you like the most? Because we kind of matched up. Originally, we matched up artists, so we kind of had so that's why these two are matched up. So Ray Moore and Don Newton are generally edgy, dark, lots of shadows, lots of darkness and ink. Mm-hmm. So maybe it might not be the best one, but let's go for this one anyway. I think this will be an easy one. Like I said, we can always do a 6-1.
Yeah. Well, I'm lucky enough again to have a copy of the Hermes Press publication of the complete work of Don Newton. And until I had gone through that and read that, I probably didn't appreciate the impact that he'd had, to be honest, because I hadn't collected a lot of the American publications that he'd originally drawn for. And so I'd heard of Don, that he's a great artist, and I'd seen panels or pages, but I hadn't really read stories. So I did get a newfound appreciation for his work, and I think this is an easy one, though. I'm going to pick Ray Moore. And that's with no disrespect at all to Don Newton. It's just, again, grew up on the Ray Moore stories. Didn't enjoy them as much as Wilson McCoy's art when I was probably a young fella, but reading over those stories.
Well, how about
again,
we rephrase the question between Ray Moore and Wilson McCoy?
Well, okay, so you would have gone Ray Moore as well in the previous.
Yes. Purely based on numbers and what Ray Moore had added more to the Phantom lore than what Don Newton did.
Yep.
But if I was to choose my favourite artist out of them, I would have chosen Don Newton.
Okay. All right then. Same question, but as you said, Ray Moore versus Wilson McCoy.
Yeah. So if you could live with one over the other, who would it be?
Well, there's a lot of really great Phantom stories that Ray Moore drew, and there's a lot of really great Phantom stories that Wilson McCoy drew. Much cleaner lines, Wilson McCoy, and much simpler, but in both positive and negative senses of the word, I suppose, for Wilson McCoy.
Yep.
But right now, I'm going to go Wilson McCoy. I think that I enjoy so many of the stories, and again, they're probably that's the 10 tasks or 12 tasks was a 10, wasn't it? 10 tasks, and
I think it was 12, but yeah.
12. And there was the 50th wife. There's I feel like there's a lot of numbered stories with Wilson. Yeah, I think probably Wilson McCoy, the rope people. There's some really iconic imagery that comes to mind from Wilson McCoy.
Yep. Okay, I prefer the Ray Moore stories. I prefer his art. I prefer the stories generally. But if I had to choose, it would have to be Wilson McCoy, because Wilson McCoy's stories, in my opinion, added more to the Phantom lore than what Ray Moore did. In the sense that Wilson McCoy introduced the Jungle Patrol, he introduced Morristown in a sense that it was a location.
He probably changed it from Frasertown. That counts against him right there.
You've got Eden. Eden was created. I think you've also got the poison from the Banda was kind of done through Wilson McCoy as well. You've got the Good Mark, which was a Wilson McCoy.
The Chain
came through. Hero, the Chain, which is lore, but it's only ever appeared in one story. But
it was a Wilson McCoy.
That's another discussion. Yeah, exactly. So you've got, if you had to choose between the stories that existed and the stories that didn't exist, I think you have to go Wilson McCoy, because he added more to the lore than what Ray Moore did.
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at the list of Sundays again.
I think this one is probably going to be the most
contentious.
The most contentious out of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the list of Sundays. Yeah, and it's only the first 8 stories have got are Ray Moore. There's another 4. Actually, tell a lie. That must be the period he came back after the war. He got involved in another 8, probably another 8. So, Probably though, McCoy would have at least double, if not 3 times
So
as many
there's 15
stories.
Sundays and probably 20 dailies. Yeah.
Yep. Whereas McCoy would have probably 2 or 3 times that. So sheer volume, McCoy as well, probably. Yeah, I look, at the end of the day, it comes down to your preference of art, I suppose, and of those 2 artists, I probably prefer McCoy.
See, I prefer Ray Moore over McCoy, but I'm going from the point of view, what sways me to go McCoy over Ray Moore is the fact that McCoy added more to the legend of the Phantom than what Ray Moore did.
Well, that's the thing. If the other stories don't exist, then yes, that's important.
Yeah, obviously, but that kind of takes away from the whole question. So let's not go into that one, because the question is can you have one or the other? So,
No,
yeah. So let's not put reason. Let's not have reason make that decision.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
So anything you want to add to that?
No, I think I'm settled and happy on that on McCoy. I'm not happy about it. I'm sorry that I'm not going to see any more Ray Moore, but it is what it is.
I do have a Wilson McCoy original artwork as well, so I wouldn't lose that. So maybe that's
full disclosure.
Yeah, I would love it. I think Ray Moore's on everyone's bucket list.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's go to the next one. Timer is stopped. We've only gone timer once. Okay. Now, if you could only engage with one of these options for the rest of your life between eBay or Gumtree, what would it be? Let's just say eBay. Should we go eBay versus Gumtree or eBay versus anything else?
Yeah, probably versus anything else. So for international listeners, Gumtree is an Australian website.
Like Craigslist for America.
Yeah. So it's more, well, it's not an auction, is it? It's more just an online classifieds.
Yeah. So let's do eBay versus. Should we do eBay versus everything else?
Well, everything else includes trades that you might make at Supernova and
Okay, so let's not go that far. Let's go eBay versus online classifieds.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
eBay versus online classifieds. All right.
That changes my question again. That changes my answer again.
Does it?
All right. 10 minutes, go.
Okay.
Well, no, because I would have gone everything else, because I love the hunt. I love the chase. I love trying to find an obscure website to try and find something, or finding a classified and doing stuff like that. But I also love the person to person, but seeing it's just the eBay versus online classified, I would have to go eBay, because eBay is bigger and it probably does cover a lot more than you can find more on eBay than just online classifieds.
Yeah, there's certainly more available. Probably if eBay didn't, we can't project forward to, well, if eBay didn't exist, everyone else would use everyone would use an online classified, so that, the product would still be there. You have to sort of say, well, you're only, you're banned from one of those two. If we declare ourselves for the online classifieds, we have to give up an eBay account and never have an eBay account, but it continues to exist for everybody else.
Yeah, and
vice versa. So, I mean, every serious collector of anything, really, let alone fandom, but for us, you're right, eBay is a gold mine. If you're looking for comics from the last 20 or 30 years in Australia through comics, there'll be 15 different buyers. You can get just about every issue off of. The fee, I find that eBay is more expensive as a general rule. If you can find something on the online classifieds, then quite often then you're getting it for less than it's worth. Well, you can engage straight away and you can negotiate and talk people down. Whereas
sometimes that's a negative also, in the sense that it, some people have got more time. So it's like, with the online classifieds, if you're there first, you can usually get in quicker.
Yep.
Or if, so that factor where some people, like to troll through the eBay feeds or whatever at night time or in the morning or at lunchtime. And so it gives everyone a chance, where online classifieds is first in, best dressed, in a sense.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I'm very rarely the first one in. I would say I might be, if I go online classifieds, I may never see anything available for sale again, because there are people with a lot more time on their hands, retired or whatever it is,
or a slacker job.
Yeah. So the collection might suffer, but the bank account would be okay.
You just spend it on something else, so.
Oh, probably. Another advantage of Gumtree is often with or those online classifieds, I do tend to find that when you go around to pick up whatever it is you've purchased, certainly if it's local, and Gumtree is a bit like that, you look for your local stuff. You might say, thank you very much for selling me this figurine. Do you happen to have anything else, Phantom? And often the answer is yes, and so often you can get things before they even go online.
Yeah. That's true.
Because you're having that conversation where eBay is all just click and that's about it.
Yeah.
You don't have that engagement typically on eBay.
Yep. But also, and there's classifieds around the world, so you wouldn't lose out on not being able to communicate with people, or pick up stuff from overseas as well. So you wouldn't lose out on that. eBay is a route with the GST fees for overseas and shipping and stuff like that. But I think that one's a fairly easy one.
So what have you decided? eBay?
Anything? eBay.
Yep. Yeah, I guess probably only because I'd get caught out. At least eBay, you've got 7 days to find something and then bid on it if you decide you want to. Whereas you're right, that's probably convinced me. The fact that with the classifieds, whoever rings up first will usually get it. You don't get the chance to say, "Hang on, I'd like a crack at this as well." So yeah, eBay for me as well.
Okay. I have to ask this question, so we're going to do another one. Okay, we're going to do one more for 10, and I reckon this one is going to be the hardest one.
Now, this won't have been on the run sheet, is it?
No. So you're not getting
no
full
idea.
warning on this one.
I've got no idea what this one's going to be.
So if you could only choose one, and for the rest of your life, would it be, which fruit publisher era would it be? Would it be the Forsyth era, so from beginning to the mid-80s, Jim Shepherd era, from the mid-80s to 2015 era, or the Frucru era, which is 2015-ish to current? And let's just say that they're all still alive and you'll be getting that type of fruit comic. Does that kind of make sense?
Okay, so if I choose the Jim Shepherd era, then that type of publishing will continue. That's what next week's comic's going to be. Similar with the Ron Forsyth era. So you're still getting those early 1980s type comics.
Okay, and start.
Well, gee, that's an interesting question. I mean, there's a lot more variety today. There's because again, we're talking about fruit. We're not just talking about regular issues, are we? We've got to include the other things that they've done. So that means that in the Ron Forsyth era, you can count the original giant size. So those sorts of things are going to continue. The Phantom Adventures type prose books are going to continue. So the Super Yanks,
the pins and the and stuff that they had.
The rubber rings and that sort of thing. Like competitions. They were pretty good, really, when you look at it. Weren't they?
Yeah,
Probably dropped off in the late 70s, early 80s, which is, I guess, as they went towards passing over. Gee, wow, it's a really good question. It's a really good question. Jim Shepherd, the Jim Shepherd era started really well and was probably really he introduced the annuals. He introduced the concept of unedited, abridged stories collected in their entirety. So that's a real.
He also oversaw the movie period. His marketing, in a sense, with the newsagents and also in the newspapers and stuff like that, was second to none.
Yeah.
He brought in the commercial aspect instead of getting adverts of stamps and
guitar playing lessons
and all diplomas and stuff like that. He, introduced adverts for Phantom products, the Phantom Club, things like that, or Phantom Clubs.
Mm-hmm.
He created his own stories. Yeah, they were pretty average, but created his own stories. He saw the introduction of European stories, also the Charlton stories as well that he introduced. He introduced a lot of the Phantom history type of elements. So, for instance, in the Phantoms Goes to War in 1043 or 1040, there was the family tree with the Phantom wives and the years and stuff like that. He did the Princess Valerie story. He did like a little bit of a background into like when Wilson McCoy took over Ray Mall. So there was a lot of that type of story and those elements as well, like that. Then you've got the Frou Crew who's brought in, the Phantom brought in a more wider range of stories, created a better, probably better stories than what Jim Shepherd's were. They've actually been published in other countries. So, which one would you prefer if you could only have one or the other?
Part of it is part of the conundrum here. How much longer? I didn't even press the timer on this. How much longer have we got?
You got 7 minutes.
Okay, plenty of time. Part of the conundrum with this is, the best we've just gone through.
Jim Shepherd?
Sorry?
Yeah. What part of Jim Shepherd's era?
Or Forsyth's, the best of each era, which we've just relayed, was really, really good. The decline of each era, and we haven't, seen that with the Frou Crew because they're only brand new, in the scheme of things. We certainly
hopefully we won't for the next 20 years.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, we're talking about a publication that's been around for 80 years, and there's only 3 eras to choose from. So, and we're really, in that sense, at the start of the 30s. But the high point of each era was really, really good. And so, do you measure against that? I think you have to measure that. I think you have to measure the high points, because if you measure the low points, that's not fair on Forsyth and Shepherd, because
I think you have to take it into account, though.
Well, I guess it's part of the average, but you would. There's no the time, because what are we looking at? 40 odd years for Forsyth era, 20 odd years for Shepherd, 80, nearly 30,
90. Yeah, so 20 odd.
Yeah.
I think Jim. I think Jim. There was a renaissance with Jim. It was aging badly towards the end of Forsyth, but for 40 years doing the same thing,
they did bring print Semic stories though. In the early 80s,
they started like one or two. Yeah. If I was to choose, so let's do a decision. If I was to choose, I'll go Jim Shepherd.
Oh, really? That is probably where I thought you would go third, to be honest.
No, I would go Jim Shepherd because the Jim Shepherd area has the Phantom Clubs. He brought in the stories. He brought in unedited newspaper stories. Well, as unedited as you're likely to get, which we're still seeing the fruit of that now with Hermes Press and all these other country publishers are doing as well. A lot of the stuff that they're printing and publishing has come from what Jim Shepherd has found. So They created stories. You've got good covers, not as good as the covers that you get now, but you're still getting good covers. According to some of the research that I've been doing, reading these articles as I've been scanning them in and all that, they were printing up to 40. They were doing up to 40,000 copies per issue.
Yep. It's probably the golden time in terms of sales for sure.
Yeah. Where Frew would be, the Frew crew would love to do something like that now.
Yeah.
And then so yeah, I would have to go Jim Shepherd. You got 3.5 minutes, mate, to make up a decision.
Well, obviously, I have to choose one that you haven't because that's just.
You don't have to.
it's more fun.
It would make more interesting.
I think. Look, obviously, it's a progression, and everyone is built on the work of the previous. I really like the pins and the rings and the paraphernalia that was available during the Forsyth years. But I guess Jim Shepherd's got Monkeys ads and all that sort of stuff through his Frews, so Monkeys of Melbourne and that sort of thing. So that was a huge era for the Phantom through his watch through the late 90s. Perhaps we're not giving enough credit right now in this conversation to the current Frew crew with Dudley and Glenn and Renee, because they're doing the best of it of all of those before them. They brought out entirely new lines like Kid Phantom. I know that hasn't been as commercially successful as they would have liked, but it's been massively successful in my house. They're writing their own new stories. They've still got the reprints of the old stuff through the much maligned replica series. I love their covers. We've talked about their stable of artists, and I think I'm going to go the current crew. As much as I admire the work of each of the others before them, and I know that they've got probably more runs on the board, but I really like the direction that the current crew are taking. They're also producing a lot more in the way of, the file cards, the universe cards, posters, folios. There's all of that as well, and I think you have to take that into.
From a collector's point of view, the Frew crew would be better because there's more to collect.
Well, yeah, not for a collector's wife's point of view, but yes. No, you're right there. Yeah, I'm gonna go the current crew. I think hang on, does that mean my collection is now void of all of the Forsyth era and Shepherd era comics? They're all gone.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not really. I think the question's hard enough to answer without that writer.
Yeah, I think without having to set a match to my collection of 1950s to 1980s comics. I'm going to go the new era.
So with 30 seconds left to answer, that means you would not be getting as many newspaper stories and Lee Falk stories.
Yeah, it means I'd be sweating on the Christmas issue for the newspaper stories and the replica series. Yeah, that would. But it's the mix.
Does that mean you have to hand in your Falkus card?
No, I don't. I think Dudley and Glenn would be shocked to think that they're not at least partly focused. No, I think that it's the best of all the worlds. Is the current setup is the best of all the worlds. So I'm going for balance.
Okay, all right. There's the timer for that one. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Alrighty-o. So let me bring up the run sheet. Where are we?
We're done.
We're done. So yes, people, that is going to be the end of the podcast. So I hope you've had fun with the what would you choose. So we had fun with it. I think we've got about 20 odd questions. We've done 6 tonight. So we're going to, every so often when we can't be bothered being serious, we're going to have a fun one. We might, I don't know, sometimes we might even get someone else involved or something as well. So I hope you enjoyed that. So let's wrap up. So Dan, thank you for joining me tonight. First of all,
do you find it a little bit weird, like that we are ending so soon? I feel like I'm just about to settle into my groove. We've got another hour and a half left in us, surely.
Yeah, it's only 9 o'clock where I am, so I might actually see my wife before she falls asleep. All right, so yeah, it does feel weird. So a huge shout out. We've got 2 new Patreons, so we've got to give them a huge round of applause and a huge thanks for jumping on board. We have Mandrake DOE, which is Mandrake Defence of the Earth, or AKA Roof Horn, who is a huge Mandrake fan and does follow us and comment a lot on Facebook as well. And then we've got another one which happened today, Bod Dolan. I'm not sure if that's an alias or not, but Mandrake and Bod, we appreciate your support. We'll send you some emails and stuff like that, so that way you could get access to our Phantom Preservation Project, as well as our Facebook. So for our Phantom Preservation Project, what that is basically it's a huge depository or a preservation of everything digital, which includes music, videos, articles from newspapers and magazines, fan stuff, anything that could be digitalized that is preserving from Phantom history. We've got, and it's huge. We've got an index, so if you're curious about that, jump onto our website and you can download, or you can have a look at the index, and there is a lot of stuff there. It's a big job that we are doing. It takes up a lot of our time, but it's something that we all love. So Dan, do you want to quickly tell us what you have added in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's one of those things, like you say, big jobs. It's one of those things where we have every intention of doing it once a month, but sometimes that slips away from us. But we basically try to add, whatever is the volume of stuff that we would have added over that period of time. And sometimes it's every second or third month. But so this one was a big drop with a lot of stuff. A huge thanks to Thomas from Sweden, who's sent us a few more files. So we've included a couple more songs, Phantom songs from Sweden. I don't understand a word, but the beat's really cool. We posted on the website about the treasure trove of magazine and newspaper articles that you've been able to pick up, Germ. So there were 27 new newspaper or magazine articles from across 5 different countries. And that area of the preservation project is really going to start to grow over the next period of time. So we've uploaded 27. I know that since then you've probably scanned. There's probably another at least 15 or 20 articles just sitting there waiting to go into the next update. How many of you got still sitting there waiting to scan, do you think?
I've got a pile at least 2 to 3 inches thick.
Yeah, right. So lots more to come.
So yeah, so all up there will probably be a minimum of 100, I would say. We've got 27. There's probably another, like I said, another 10. I've got another 10 or 15 waiting to be named and uploaded and stuff like that. So yeah, I reckon easily we should have about 100.
Unreal. So that they'll drop over time as we have time to scan and upload and rename and put in the index so it's easy for people to find and stuff. So those are all there, and that's growing, which is awesome.
And we're talking about stuff from the 1980s up until recent. So
yeah.
That's what, almost 40 years worth of newspaper articles and stuff.
I think the 27 that went up were all from about 2003 through to 2015, so that sort of era. But the next drop should be probably 80s and 90s type stuff as well. So it just takes time. Look forward to that more as it trickles down. One thing that I'm really pleased that we've been able to upload is 2 more Friends of the Phantom newsletters. We're getting really close to having a full set now, which is fantastic. We've got the complete run from issues 10 through to 24 being the last one. So we've locked down the second half or more of the series of Friends of the Phantom newsletters. There's only 4 remaining for us to add to the preservation project. So looking forward to having the complete set there. Lots of great information there. Kid Phantom Homework, the short animation, which we have spoken about at length at different times on the podcast and devoted an entire podcast to 2 years ago, I think. That finally was released recently, and if you found the links on Facebook or the Kid Phantom website, you can certainly see that there, but we have also saved that into the preservation project as well for you to find. There are 2 very subtly different versions, both of which are in the preservation project, one from 2017 and one from this year. There's a fan-made video which towards the end features an interview with Stan Lee. It is in South America. I think it must be Brazil. And the interview is conducted in Spanish, but there are subtitles. Oh, no, sorry, there are subtitles, but you can hear Stan Lee speaking in English, and then the subtitles are in Spanish. So good luck. But it is it's a fun one. But I think the most exciting thing was, and when I went to upload this, I actually stopped and ended up watching the whole thing just because it was so fascinating. There's a 10-minute video which was just labelled A History of the Phantom. So I thought, oh, yeah, this will be a fan-made montage with some music and some images and whatever. But no, it was 10 minutes of Pete Claus and Ed Rhodes as the Friends of the Phantom committee, I suppose, at that stage, hosting a lecture at a convention of some sort. So 10 minutes of Pete and Ed speaking, which was really, really interesting. From the early 2000s, it looks like about 2001, 2003, that sort of era. So those were the latest updates.
Awesome. So you can find all that type of stuff on our website, which is chroniclechamber.com, along with all our news and everything like that. We'll go over our news in probably our next podcast, which will be a comments and news podcast. Now, is that Reddit message board still going?
No, well, it probably is still sitting there. I never check it.
All right.
There's only so many hours in a day.
If you want to add to this subject, or you want to give us your answers, you can suggestions for podcasts or anything else like that. You can email us at chroniclechamber@gmail.com, or you can comment on our social media, which we have the Facebook, which is chroniclechamber.com, and then we're also admins of the Phantom Collector Group. And then on Twitter, there's @ChronicleTweets, and on Instagram, there is @Chamber. If you're not subscribed to us, whatever program you use, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, or apps like Podbean, Player FM, Castbox, etc., please do give us a rating while you're at it. That just helps other people to be able to find us and keeps us up near the top and stuff like that.
And just to emphasise that Spotify, that's a new one that's only happened in the last probably month that we've become available on Spotify as well. So get your children to show you how to find us there.
Yeah, that's it. So a huge thank you to everyone that is listening to us. We hope you enjoyed this. A little bit different, a little bit more fun, a little bit more lighthearted. So when you listen to it, make sure you jump onto either the website or social media, or send us an email with what your answers would be. So until next time, Dan and everyone else, happy phantoming.
Happy phantoming, Germ. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
500 years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die.
The Phantom,
The ghost who walks,
the Phantom,
enemies beware, the phantom's always there, but you won't find the phantom